All right, DDL men, next up we have someone who has silently been creeping his way up these last few years, a Zion Bellringers, picking at 2.1. Um, you guys may not have noticed, kind of flying under the radar, he has improved his seed each of the last 3 years running, which is really something that's not to scoff at. And we'll look at his roster starting off with his quarterback spot where he has Peyton Manning, who had a great year in 2012 and looks to do the same in 2013. There's no reason to believe he should go down. I know he's getting older, but with all the weapons in place and with the football IQ that Peyton Manning has, there's no reason he shouldn't be right around, if not better than where he was in 2012. So I feel really good about him as a QB1. And right behind that, he has Peyton Manning's successor in Indianapolis is Andrew Luck. He has one heck of a QB too. He's a QB1 on most teams right now. It's to the point where you can say I trust Andrew Luck to lead me to the promised land, even in terms of fantasy, not just in reality. And I think he's going to be. A lot of people go through a sophomore slump. I don't think Luck's going to have one of those. He's just too intelligent. He has a great arm. He's got weapons that we didn't even realize he had, and people like T.Y. Hilton. He had a good year last year. Reggie Wayne rejuvenated his career there. They've even added some people. To be totally honest with you, I like Darius Hayward-Bay there. I think he could be in for a pretty dang solid year. Improve on his 2011 or 2012 numbers for sure. And that's all because of Andrew Luck. So he's got a great pair of quarterbacks, A+, from the QB position. He's in great shape, Zion Bellringers. At running back, he's got C.J. Spiller and MJD as his starting two. Spiller is hot right now, and MJD is about as cold as can be. I will say that both of them I like to have pretty good 2013. Spiller, I think, the thing about these two is I think the gap is not as big as people realize, at least in terms of 2013 production. I think Spiller is not going to touch the ball much more than he did last year. I think that's his cap. I think that he's a very, very good player. He's very dynamic. He's great in PPR. But I think that he is not going to be able to touch the ball more than about 250 times. And MJD, on the other hand, is coming off a pretty bad injury, but I really believe that he'll be fine, and I think he'll come back guns blazing this year. Behind those top two, though, he is in a bit of a tiffy, if you will, with Fred Jackson and Kendall Hunter. Fred Jackson he's getting up there in age. He's probably, 32 now behind Spiller. He's just a mere handcuff at this point, I would say. Even though when playing, he plays rather well, he's getting older. And I know the excuse used to be that he didn't have a lot of tread on his tires, but there's a point where we have to consider his age and not just his wear and tear, and I think he's on the downside. Kendall Hunter had a catastrophic injury last year, but is a great depth guy. Again, though, just his top two running backs, he's in good shape as Zion, but behind that, he's looking a bit troublesome. At wide receiver, he's in good shape with his starting three. Again, with the three that he starts, he's got Marshall, Colston, and Jordy Nelson. All of them are good starters for a different reason. Marshall was wide receiver probably 3, give or take, last year, 2 or 3. He was great with Cutler, and there's no reason to believe he won't be great again. Marcus Colston he's a guy that I really like to have on my fantasy team. Colston is underrated, underappreciated, but he'll give you wide receiver 2 numbers every year. And everyone always has a reason why they don't think he'll do it, and he always does it. Everyone's like, oh, this is the year he falls off. He's not really that talented. Or Sean Payton's not there this year. Or he got his free agent contract this year, so he's going to slow down. And yet he hasn't. He's gotten you 75 to 80 catches for 1,000 to 1,200 yards and 6 to 10 touchdowns. And that's what he'll do again next year, and he's in good shape. Jordy Nelson, without the injuries, he should be fine this year, especially at wide receiver 3. Behind that, he's got a couple guys with question marks, and Greg Little and Kenny Britt, who both have questions for their own reasons. They're both good bench guys, though. I like Little to have a better year than in 2012, and he wasn't all that awful towards the end of the year. Kenny Britt had about as worse year as you could imagine. It was terrible, and they drafted, Justin Hunter as a result of it, so his days may be numbered. I still keep him around and hope for the best. He's a high upside guy, and that's what we've been preaching with Kenny Britt forever, so he's okay at wide receiver 5. Behind that, he's got Kreiner, Boykin, and Hartline. Kreiner and Boykin are both guys that, their respective teams have lost their top targets in Greg Jennings and Darius Hayward-Bay. So there has been, I'm not saying that Kreiner or Boykin are going to be the top target on our team, but they have a chance to move up a spot or two in a depth chart this year, so they're not somebody to write off. Hartline, I think it was an anomaly last year. He had one great game that accounted for about a quarter of his production. I think he's a 60 catch, 65 catch for 800-yard guy tops. At tight end, Zion is doing all right with no top-tier starters, but three guys that are all about in that second tier, Dennis Pitta, Jermichael Finley, and, Brandon Myers. I couldn't think of his first name. And all three of them are guys that could be good bets to start on any given week and have a solid week. Something like 6 catches for 70 yards. And that doesn't sound great, but, if you can get 11, 12 points out of your tight end every week, then you're going to have a top 10 tight end. And I think one of these guys will be. He'll probably be playing roulette who he starts, depending on the matchups, but they're in good shape with those three. His picks, he has the 2-1, which you're seeing, and also the 2-3. I think he just has to go best player available at every one of his picks. BPA and, maybe 2-1 he looks for. I think my dream pick at the 2-1 for him would be Marcus Lattimore if he's available, because he already has Kendall Hunter, and I'm not a believer in Michael James, so that will lock him up the San Francisco backfield. That is the guy I would be targeting. If he's gone, I'd consider Marcus Wheaton. That'd be another guy that I would look at. Maybe even Zach Stacy. I like his opportunity in St. Louis, and I'm not a big Richardson or Pede believer. At 2-3, it's kind of the same group of people, I think, because there's only one pick in between his two. So I'd be looking at the same group. And with his third rounders, just best player available. But without further ado, we're here for Zion Bellringers to make your pick. Good luck, sir.